And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. Lots of stuff to cover once again. Exciting things happening in all kinds of different fronts. First, let's talk about sunspot 2755. It took about 40 hours for this sunspot to get named. I think folks were on vacation. And there's the close-up view of it in 304 angstroms on the SDO. Looking at the last 9 hours. Today on January 3rd, 2020. How's your vision? Is it clear? There's the northern portion. Some large plasma filaments in the northeast. And let's take a look at the colorized magnetogram and see how that sunspot is evolving. Zoom in a little more here. And there's that sunspot. And it looks like it could actually be gaining some complexity here, as it looks like it's got a South Pole oriented field on the trailing end there. So it's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. And when I say eye on, the pun is intentional. Here's a view on HelioViewer, and there you can see the fields. Not a very distinct field in the trailing region there, but if that kicks up, there's going to be some serious looping involved. And let me just fade to 171 angstroms so you can see the way this type of ionized plasma orients to the magnetic fields. Slowly fade that back out and back in. And there's the close-up at 171 angstroms. A cycle 25 sunspot, and looking pretty powerful. Thanks everybody tuning in live on Twitch. If you don't view on Twitch, check out twitch.tv/smAsho. And if you haven't checked this out yet, check out smAshomash.org. Scroll down, click on the forum, set yourself up a login, have a conversation about, oh, who knows, Schumann resonances, ocean cleanups, super elaborate but feasible something or others, favorite solar viewers, some kind of rockets. Check out the smAsho forum, smashomash.com/forum. Back to solar data, looking at the GOES X-ray flux, quite flatlined over the past 3 days. 10.7 centimeter radial flux is still at 72, and thanks to all our new viewers. If you're not aware of the 10.7 centimeter radial flux, it is a good proxy for sunspot number, as the radial flux follows sunspot number quite closely. 72 is still basically a solar minimum condition, but we are welcoming the incoming sunspots of cycle 25. Here's an image of the solar polar fields, just updated on December 31st, 2019 by Solon.info. And the fields have not dropped off a cliff yet, so that is a good thing, folks. And it looks like we're going to have a solar cycle. And we've got the KP index jumped up to 3 here. And that's looking like it's a result of a little tiny uptick in the solar wind here. We just saw the density drop down and the velocity increase. We'll show you in a minute, but first we're going to look at cosmic rays. And we see 2 step-ups here since December 29th here at Apatity. And so we've got a small upward trend in the past 30 days at the Apatity neutron monitor. Barentsburg neutron monitor not showing the same trend. Let's look at Athens, Greece next. Here are the data from Athens neutron monitor. Some pretty wild ranges there in the past couple of days. And it looks like a small uptrend there at Athens also, similar to Apatity. So a small cosmic ray uptick in the first 2 monitors we look at. Let's look at Mexico City. Fairly flat there, maybe a tiny uptick at Mexico City. And over the past day or two, it's certainly an uptick. You can access old data at the Mexico City monitor, by the way. Here's Moscow. And uh-oh, That's fake Russian news right there, folks. Next, we'll look at Oulu, Finland, and DOMC, Antarctica. There's the Oulu monitor, looking flat over the past 30 days. But again, an uptick over the past day at Oulu. Here's DOMC, Antarctica, which typically shows totally different type of data. Were you aware that the Earth spits out cosmic rays out of the poles? At least out of Antarctica. We left links to the Network of Cosmic Rays station site if you want to monitor them yourself. Now we've zoomed into 6 hours of the real-time solar wind here. I don't know why that's getting stuck over there. It's getting stuck. The cursor's stuck. In any case, phi angle currently at 79 degrees. We just saw a shift as the solar wind speed kicked up right at that moment around 8:30 UT. And let's bring up the one-day chart here. I apologize if it takes a moment to load. And there's the one-day chart. And you can see the solar wind velocity came down and now came back up again. So this looks like the beginning of a coronal hole wind stream once again, folks, but a pretty weak one, as we barely see an increase in the solar wind density, although it did get up to about 11 protons per cubic centimeter there. And again, the phi angle just dropped off, and a small shift in the BTBZ in the top pane here at the same time, and a small uptick in the temperature. There's the data from ACE looking similarly as it typically does. Electron flux is totally cratered, and we've got some very weak Van Allen belts out there right now, according to the GOES 14 and 16 data. Check it out, very low electron flux. Relativistic electrons at quite low levels as well, reported by Solon.info. Next we'll look at the ionosphere, and we see continued charge-ups in the southern hemisphere. South-southeast of Hawaii, around the equator still, we see small ionospheric anomalies down there in the South Pacific, especially the Southeast Pacific. And not as anomalous as it was a couple of weeks ago, so it looks like it's calming down a little bit. We also see some anomalous readings down there around Antarctica. Let's bring up the latest image. That one coming in at 9 o'clock UT, and we see the same thing we saw yesterday. We see an obvious clipping of the data here. Not exactly sure how that happens, but I highly doubt that blob just ended there right on the prime meridian. It's probably not a coincidence. Anyway, let's move on to more data. GOES magnetometers have just reached an arcjet moment, and so you may see some missing data on this one. Some wild fluctuations there in the GOES magnetometers. And I don't know what's going on with the National Sunspot Observatory, but we don't have any data from Gong 2. So perhaps folks are still on vacation. We've got 2-day and 9-hour-old data here on the Gong 2. And I even pressed refresh just to show you that there's nothing to look at as far as the magnetic environment. We don't look at 2-day-old data on this channel. Next, we'll look at the Geospace Magnetosphere movies, looking at 4 hours of data here. Magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And we should see a spike right around 8:30 here, if this thing doesn't refresh. And we don't see a spike around 8:30, indicating that it was a magnetic anomaly that raised the KP. Most likely not just the solar wind velocity, as we don't really see it reflected here. Let me rock that through. Again, that's 4 hours of data. What a weak magnetosphere there at the end. A very weak magnetosphere around 8:30. And let's look at the Geospace ground magnetic perturbations, delta B, changes in the Earth's B field. And for those of you who think Siberia is not sending data, note how there's data over the Siberian North Pole. So we see extreme creep of the South Pole into the southern Indian Ocean once again. You see a lot of induced current there, south-southwest of Australia, as well as a lot of current in the Canadian North Pole. So an interesting scenario. We're living through a polar excursion. Let's hope it doesn't end civilization as we know it. Let's look at the earthquakes of the past 24 hours. Let's see, here's a very shallow quake. Let's just take a look at this real quick. This 4.0 occurring at only 100 meters depth. 0.1 kilometers. Let's see the location of that. Damn. Please leave a comment if you felt that quake, as it appears to have been felt in Santa Barbara, Santa Monica, Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim, Santa Clarita. Check it out. It's only a 4 magnitude quake though, so let's continue up the list here. I'm just going to slowly scroll. Here's a deep quake in Indonesia. That one's at 268 kilometers depth. Looks like a little ping-ponging going on there. Here's a deep quake at Dominica, and we have seen an uptick in Caribbean quakes. This could be the largest of the past 24 here. That 5.5 at the Solomon Islands. And I see one right off the coast of Madagascar in the African Rift Zone. Take a look at that in a minute. Is it that one there? There it is. 27 kilometers east of Mayotte, 5.1 magnitude quake. Please leave a comment if you think a new plate boundary is forming and Africa is going to split in two. I'm not saying I believe it or disbelieve it. Here's another deep quake in Alaska, and we have seen an uptick in the entire Pacific plate boundary there. And just continuing up the list here, no reported quakes in Hawaii. Another deep quake at Alaska. Here's a deep quake in Japan. That 4.9 magnitude at 193.7 kilometers depth. And we're looking at Suwanosejima, a small volcanic island of Japan. And we've noted another island on the windy.com map. We don't see a webcam for this one, so let's just zoom out and advance the pressure maps as per the GFS model. And there's our atmospheric pressure map. We'll let that advance about 24 hours. This video was made at 4:19. Which is about 9:19 Universal Time, by the way. And there's where things will be about 24 hours from the making of this video. High pressure dominating the western part of the U.S. Low pressure over my head, as we're getting some warmer temperatures here. Unseasonably warm temperatures for January. So let's look at the volcano list. Mount Abico, 10,000 foot ash plume there. Mount Aso, back on the list. Flight level 6,000 there. Suwanosejima, flight level 5,000 there. Tucono's exploding, 7,000 foot plume there. Kerinci is back on the list. So significant volcanic uptick at Kerinci in Sumatra. That 14,000 foot ash plume is not to be pole vaulted. Sangay, not sure on Sangay. Please don't pitch a tent on the lower slopes of Sangay. Venador exploding, producing a 15,000 foot ash plume of possible emissions. And unable to detect Sabancaya, please do not fly your ultralight aircraft home built over Sabancaya. And here's a lightning situation. And it looks like we've got some lightning in the US. Nolans. There's thunder rolling in Nolans. Man, what a swampy area that is. Also, Moss Point and Pascagoula. There's thunder rolling. And check out lightningmaps.org next time you hear lightning. Well, I don't know how you hear lightning, but if you hear it, please leave a comment. Here's the nullschool.net jet stream images of the eastern world. We've got the map centered on India here, and we see extreme meridional jet stream flow up here over the northern Middle East. A big kink over the Himalayas, and some pretty extreme jet stream flow over the southern hemisphere also. Big Ben's meridional jet stream flow at its finest. And let's look at the western world. Extreme meridional jet stream flow, check it out. Jet streams moving straight north to south over the west central US and straight south to north over the south central US, making a nearly 180-degree turn over only a couple of 100 miles. Going to be injecting really cold air all the way down into Baja, Mexico. And let's move on, look at the US Doppler Radar map. We'll just leave that on the screen for a moment, take a sip of coffee, and call it a day, and throw coffee on my keyboard. I don't know why I did it. It wasn't my favorite idea of the day, but I did it anyway. I apologize for that temporary aside, but worry not, folks. I bought a highly water-resistant keyboard. Anyway, it's raining over my head. And anyway, there's the US Doppler Radar. Here's a water vapor map. We show this most days. And we show Hall currents over places like East Texas. But let's look at this extreme convergence here in the El Paso region, as the jet stream is forced to make a huge bend right there. So let's take a look at that, as the pressure gradients should be quite crazy. In this weather pornography section, brought to you by smAsho Mash and Smash staff at massive personal expense. Please consider becoming a patron if you haven't already done so. We need a lot more funding to accomplish our goals for the year 2020, while we make your understanding of things like cosmology crystal clear. Also, please don't forget to press like and subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy the content, as we've been stagnated at 1.45 thousand subscribers for a decade? A year? I don't know. I don't know if we're losing subscribers at the same rate that we're gaining them. Whatever. I'm not concerned about the algorithms. But what I will say is, we had a seance. By the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. Instagram.com/smAshomash. See some stuff that's exclusive. Had a seance. Epstein said he killed himself, and Hillary has no souls on the payroll in hell. Totally no souls at all in hell are on Hillary Clinton's payroll. Thanks, Smash team, for viewing. And please don't forget to stay tuned for the bonus features, such as That Is an Ass and That Is a Hole in the Ground, where we talk about everything from pack animals, how we're vulgarity-free, and giant sinkholes that could be gateways to hell. Not sure. We just got more evidence that the leading hypothesis about Alzheimer's could be wrong. This article on Science Alert talking about how amyloid plaques do not appear to be the cause of Alzheimer's. Just a correlation. There's a new protein that they're looking at called tau. Read the article on Science Alert. We try to cover some human health stories when we see interesting ones, especially about the more important subjects, and Alzheimer's is a serious issue. Look for our 3C405 shirts featuring massive radio galaxy Cygnus A and a link to our website on the shirt. It's coming, and we're probably going to do the first production run in January. Thanks again, viewers, for being massive entropy busters, as there's so much nonsense in science publications right now. And welcome to the Cosmology segment, where we talk about whatever we want related to cosmology. Now, first we're going to talk about a massive halo of neutral hydrogen around a galaxy located like 400 million light years away. And this is yet another situation calling into question standard cosmology. There is a lot of debate as to how these massive gas clouds of neutral hydrogen get around these galaxies. You can see them pictured here in red. And some Indian astronomers came up with this one, this image here at the National Center for Radiophysics in Pune, India. So read the article, as it is another important story in cosmology, and these things are coming out faster than you can say magnetic fields. Now let's talk about blazars. Now we covered this story yesterday, blazar variability, this one by the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Now blazar is a special type of active galactic nucleus where we're looking directly down this relativistic jet. And we linked to the article once again today, so you can read that, even though we did it also yesterday. Sometimes we cover articles for more than one day, folks. So in any case, here's where stuff is in the solar system right now. We're going to get on to talk about some more interesting stuff in a minute. There's where things will be in 1 week on the 10th, as we are right on a full moon, it looks like. And here's where stuff is above my head. Other stuff. We're talking about things like stars and planets, galaxies, and so on, at in-the-sky.org. And if you have a low horizon, maybe check out Mars. It should be rising before the sun once again, right as I do the video. Now let's talk about Gobekli Tepe. Considered by many to be the oldest megalithic site in the world, this one located in Turkey. It was only recently discovered. I'm not exactly sure when it was discovered, but probably the most recently discovered megalithic site, at least significant one. And this features a whole bunch of T-shaped rocks that have negative relief sculptures of animals in them. And when looking into ancient cultures, it is very interesting that ancient cultures seem to know so much about astronomy. In fact, it seems that some ancient cultures seem to know things that should only be known by those looking through a radio telescope. Well, how can that be? We're not exactly sure, but it be. And perhaps things like blazars played a role in human evolution. Now, this is not a new idea, as there are cosmic rays flying all around in the Milky Way galaxy, and space is not empty by any stretch of the imagination. These collimated jets come out of everything from the sun to the Milky Way galaxy to distant galaxies, and some of these happen to be pointed right at you. It's the barrel of a cosmic gun. One of my favorites is located right in our own galaxy. Now, this isn't a blazar per se, as it's not a galaxy. It's just a massive star with an even more massive little friend. So we left links to the recent swift spectroscopy of Cygnus X3. This one came out December 10th of this year. And let's just say there are some high energies coming out of Cygnus X3's jets. Let's talk about a little bit more about Andrew Collins and the Cygnus Mystery. Now, I have not vetted his books, but this is a very interesting little analysis here of his book, The Cygnus Mystery. Let me just read you a quote here as a teaser. By the way, please leave a comment if you think Betelgeuse going nova would make any sort of a significant effect on human society. I say it would, even though we don't expect it to do any damage to Earth. Going supernova should be an issue if Betelgeuse does it, as it'll have about the magnitude of the moon and be visible in the daytime for about 6 weeks. So that's interesting, to say the least. In any case, perhaps there is some sort of a connection between Cygnus X3. There is some belief out there that all of these ancient megalithic sites are oriented to the constellation Cygnus. Why is it that the ancients believed that Cygnus, the swan, which is also the predecessor to the idea of a stork carrying a baby. Ancients believed that your soul came from the sky and then returned to the sky, to the swan, Cygnus the swan. Now, it's not understood how this was known. Is it possible that perhaps maybe some humans survived the last catastrophe? Anyway, here's the Amazon link to the book, The Cygnus Mystery, the Cygnus Key, actually. Was there a link between cosmic rays and the Denisovans? Well, the short answer is we don't really know, but this is totally calling into question the evolution of the human species, the age of civilization itself, the catastrophe cycle, and a lot more things. So perhaps consider this one. If you give it a read, let me know. We've also linked to the 2000 paper from April 20th. That's 4/20/2000. High-resolution spectroscopy of the X-ray photoionized wind in Cygnus X3 with the Chandra high-energy transmission grating spectrometer. So more interesting information here about Cygnus X3. Now, Cygnus X3, one of the interesting things about it is that it has a 4.83-hour periodicity. I'll just say 4.8-hour periodicity. And it's very, very consistent in its 4.8-hour periodicity, as it goes into a quiescent state every 4.8 hours and then turns back on. So it's everything from its discovery to its behavior is super interesting. And again, you're living right inside of this thing's jet. The question with regards to X3 is not whether or not it can accelerate cosmic rays and ultra-high energy gamma rays, but exactly how it might be produced. In Andrew Collins' opinion, it is the production of relativistic jets or shock waves in association with the production that remain the best mechanism for their production, something predicted by Summers and Elbert as far back as 1989. What's important about this and other similar conclusions during the 1980s is that there was no hard data available suggesting that Cygnus X3 might be a blazar. Anyway, we've got galaxies within galaxies, folks, and you could be right at the end of the jet of Cygnus X3. It's a strange thing. It's located about 20,000 light years away. But as we know, cosmic jets coming out of the poloidal fields of these massive radio sources can traverse massive distances across the cosmos, and we see at least tens of millions of light-year-long jets coming out of active galactic nuclei. It is very difficult to measure the distance to an object where you're looking down the jet. Here's another article about the infrared spectroscopic variability of X3 in outburst and quiescence. So perhaps read that one too. Let me read the conclusion for you. Actually, I'm just going to put it on the screen, as we don't want the video to be too long. And let me shrink that down one mode there. Oh, geez. I apologize. Anyway, there are the conclusions. I'm just going to slowly scroll down here in case anybody wants to read them. Feel free to pause the YouTube video. We'll be here when you get back. Or if you're watching on BitChute. Anyway, the outbursts are anticipated to be because of mass loss, as the little friend seems to be siphoning mass off of the Wolf-Rayet star. And it's quite an odd situation out there. Cygnus X3, know it, love it, understand it. This is what it looks like in a composite image. And we're looking at X-ray as well as radio, and visible here all overlapped. The radio image shows the blue jet, which is aimed right toward you. Notice the way it has three lobes to it. It actually kind of looks like a swan in flight, and this kind of looks like a swan's tail to me. The red jet is the jet facing away from us, and the little friend is located right here at this bright spot. And so the idea is that this thing is siphoning mass off of this Wolf-Rayet star and then blasting it out through its poloidal jets. Let's talk about poloidal jets a little more. Here's M87. Now, We're not inside the poloidal jet of this, because if we were, this would be considered a blazar. And M87 has gotten very famous lately because people have labeled this massive radio source as a black hole. When you are looking through this jet, it's very difficult to discern the distance to the object, as you have these pulses. You can clearly see the pulses here in M87's jet, as we have a good view, sort of orthogonal to this, a nice angular view of M87's jet. Well, this is similar. Of course, it's a completely different size, as M87 is a galaxy and Cygnus X3 is a high-mass X-ray binary. But just consider the situation here. This is probably tens of millions of light years in length between the end of this jet here, especially this bright region here, which is possibly where a little sub-galaxy could be forming. Remember, perspective is super important in cosmology, and if you want to follow the transients of Cygnus X3, we've left links to that also. I would note that the most powerful transients we have on the graph here was at the last solar minimum back in 2008. Since then, we haven't seen a transient that high. And they're pretty much just in a normal range right now. This is from the Neil Gorell Swift Bat Observatory, the Burst Alert Telescope, and we use this to follow our favorite X-ray transients. Again, check out smashomash.com/forum for our mission. And the main part is to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics. So check out smashomash.org, scroll down, go to the forum, set yourself up an account, please, so we can have conversations on our own servers and not worry about censorship from big tech hacks who couldn't write code to save their lives. Perhaps they'll write code that'll keep them out of prison. Again, thanks for viewing on YouTube if you did not view the live stream on Twitch, or even if you viewed both. Thanks twice. Cheers. Please share on your social media, as we are stagnating. And again, thanks to those of you who viewed on Twitch. Thanks especially to patrons. Please consider becoming a patron, as we've got a lot of stuff to do this year, and we need a lot of assistance from our viewers. Smash team, cheers to you, and check out some bonus features. We're going to look at a close-up of the Umbrae Sunspot 2755. There it is at exactly 9 o'clock UT, and I can see 4 distinct Umbrae there. This is a beta-class sunspot, not super huge, not super crazy, but at a very high latitude, very close to the South Pole. Here is the colorized magnetogram at that same time. And we're going to bring up a quick 48-hour movie here. Let's look at the 131 angstroms view. And again, that's 48 hours of the local yellow dwarf. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We are out of here. Don't forget to stare at the sun. Use the proper instruments, perhaps the SDO. When you're doing so, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Seriously, don't drive. I could be on the road today, and I don't want to see you there. And if you weren't aware, it'll never be now again. So may that solar wind be at your back, and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.